Welcome to Friday Night's Vid. Tonight we are going to talk about your guitar rig and your setup. So the answer to this is real simple for me. Whether you're beginning, intermediate, or advanced, whether you're playing acoustic or electric, that I'm going to stick by this because I think it's the best route to be prepared for the future and what may come in the future, to be as versatile as possible and to be able to take advantage of all the things that are happening with the advent of digital technology as in relation to your guitar effects, amplifiers, and everything else that's involved with you being a guitarist and using your guitar in new and unique ways, and just as far as guitar rigs are concerned. So the basic idea that I'm putting at you is that basically the basic understanding of it is basically using a DAW, digital audio interface, as basically your workstation and your amplifier setup for the most part. It's the brains behind whatever you're doing in your whole amp setup, just a laptop, all right, because it's very compact, it's very easy to use, and it's unbelievable how versatile and how much it can expand what you're able to do. The next thing, the chain basically goes, you've got your guitar, you plug it into the audio interface, it goes out of the audio interface into your cabinet, and your cabinet can be just a cabinet with a head that has as little frequency and response as possible to not color the sound. See, now if you look behind me, I've got a little 30 watt PV Viper that I use because it's an all-in-one thing, and I basically try to get it to where it's got as flat a frequency response as possible, so that almost I use a little bit to color the sound, but I don't want it to sound like any amplifier. I don't want it to sound like any cabinet or any head or anything like that. I want it as clean as possible, because once this is running in there, this is going directly into my DAW. This MIDI cable is just plugging right into the side of my laptop, and basically that's my input and my link between the axis between my guitar, between my laptop, and my cabinet behind me. So it's all interlinked between that central axis. So let's take a look at when we get inside the DAW and what that means. Okay, so we got our guitar plugged into the audio interface. It's running out into the head and cabinet, and it's going into the DAW. And I've got a foot pedal board. I will show you that on here you can get a type of foot pedal board that basically different types of foot pedals for running your guitar or out of your laptop to control things going on your DAW plugins and things like that, and switch between plugins, turn plugins on off, just like having a pedal board. So that's a real simple concept to understand. And the actual guitar setup you're looking at, that it's coming into this, that you can see lots of things happening with, as far as like, let's see if I can find what well, I don't know where it's at, but anyway, the concept's real simple. So you can have a foot pedal board also to run with that. So after we get to that point, and you can even control it with a mouse or whatever as you're going along, but you can get a foot pedal board that works with it also. So when we've got to this point, what is the whole point of this? Because I've got this head in this cabinet, and I've got basically my pedal board. I'm using my laptop. My audio interface is basically my guitar rig. And why? Well, there's a few things to understand. First of all, that you've got, let's say you're on this channel here. You've got it coming into there. The other thing you can also do is you can use two different cabinets if you want to color your sound. So you could actually have a splitter here, have it coming out of your guitar splitting, and have it splitting off in two different directions on the back into a couple of different cabinets if you wanted. You can split it off any ways you want. So we're looking at the first concept here is this. Let's look at this concept first. The first concept is you can get amp sims. This is a real generic, this is a basic one that I have with my Studio One 3. This one here is going to be, this is Ampire. There's one that's normal, and there's XT for like heavy metal kind of stuff. It's got a few stomp boxes that go with it, but I don't worry most about none of that stuff. I use other things, and I'll show you in a minute. That this here basically is amp, and you can get lots of them, amp sims. You can get tons of amp sims for this. And it's, I mean, there's tons of them for different kinds of amplifiers to set up your rig any way you want, or change rigs and then set up presets in just two clicks. All of a sudden you have a totally different amp setup going into your cab with a totally different kind of sound, and you can actually hook up to a foot pedal to switch between. It's amazing. And on top of it, here's another huge thing. This is a convolution reverb, and what's inside of here, this is an impulse response that basically simulates a Marshall cabinet. So what was happening there is somebody took an impulse response of the Marshall cabinet, or any kind of cabinet you want. That way you can use an impulse response that makes the sound, after it comes out of this system, whatever amp sim you're using, going into a convolution reverb that has that impulse response, which more or less works out to like a footprint of the reverberation and acoustics characteristics of that head. There's that from different distances. You can get tons of them. Does that make sense? So you can shape it there also, which makes the sound. It really does. You'd be amazed. You get this amp sim and all of a sudden it sounds pretty good. Then you put on this convolution reverb or something like that with the impulse response to emulate certain different kinds of cabinets. That's amazing how much, I mean, it just sounds like, it sounds like it's just so cool. And you got another reverb that's got, you've got some good reverb to set up a reverb, delays, anything you want. If you come over to here, you've got mountains of different tools, any kind of delay, chorus, flangers, any kind of effect you can imagine. You can get it and put it into your DAW and put it in your signal chain here to shape the sound however you want. It's unbelievably mind-blowing. So, and as far as distortion's a huge thing, because you've set up your distortion on your amp sim and you got pretty good drive and things like that. But most of the time distortion is not controllable on a foot pedal or on an amplifier. But with something even like something Trash 2 here, I've got some presets that I set up that are set up to do even harmonics and odd harmonics on either one of them. So I've got one set up with even harmonics, one set up with odd harmonics to really super sculpt the type of distortion that's coming out, to just fine tune it, just, I mean, completely any way you want. Besides that, I mean, so then you've got tons of them. You can have a signal chain that goes on forever, bro. And I mean, a bazillion, foot pedals and effects going on your guitar if you want, and different things. But these things are probably the most important for the most part, because you've got some reverberation, a little bit of delay. Those things add a lot of body. You've got a good amp sound and sim, millions. You can get all kinds of different ones. Some type of convolution reverb, so you can put impulse responses of different types of cabinets to emulate those different kinds of cabinets. And some amp sims can do all kinds of things. That's just incredible. So then you get on to the next thing in the signal chain here. Like here's Neutron 2. Now, right now, I'm not using it. I've got the guitar running. I've got the setup going into my guitar, and then so I've got that running into there, and it's going along pretty good. I can get in here and use, I've got this on standby right now, but if I unclick that, I've also got serious control of things like, I go all the way, I've got it gated. To equalized. I've equalized the sound. I've compressed it the way I want it. I've put an exciter on it to color it. I've got a transient shaper on there to accent the transients the way I want. And I can go in, I mean, it goes on and on. I've got the iZotope Music Production Suite that I really like a lot. And I mean, it's unbelievable. And I've got tons more. I've got hundreds of different things for shaping sound. I'm really into sculpting sound. And then something like Ozone here, the same thing. You get into even like maximizers. Maximizers will just take the sound and just maximize the heck out of it, so you get as much impact as you need. It's unbelievable all the things that it's able to do. I mean, it's mind-boggling how versatile your rig can be and how elaborate and technically advanced it can be. It's unbelievable. So we move on from that to let's move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. So you have all this infinite control of your rig and your sound at your fingertips at any time, and it's just unbelievably cool rig. Does that make sense? And then we get on to things like MIDI. So we go on to here, and I showed you before, I think, this MIDI, it's called Midget. This is a real simple one. I've got a couple different versions of it, and it's really cool because all it does is takes the sound coming from the guitar, and it converts it to MIDI information so that you can route it to synthesizers, to composition software, wherever you want, into any type of synthesizer. So you've got this, got the input coming in also from the same audio interface into Midget, and if you want it to go to like this presence here, which this is set up right now to be on a drum kit, but I can change this to say I want to go to cello. I want to have a cello mixed in with it. Now I can go over here, and I can actually go over here and mute that and just have the cello. I mean, it goes on, and you can put as many of these in line as you want. You can do things, I mean, it's unbelievable because, heck, you can even do choir. You could add choir there and just do choir. Does that make sense? Anything, this is a sampling synth here. So these are set up, these things are set up. You can go to an actual synth that's just an actual synthesizer. So we can go from that one to go to this synthesizer here. This is a MyTy synthesizer. This is set up in a hammer lead. Does that make sense? And you can combine them to where you have that going with the guitar. So you can click that back on so you can make a combination of them. And you can do bends and things like that with that MIDI information, with that plugin, that Midget MIDI plugin. It's amazing what you do, and you can tie so many of those together that you want, or you can even put on drums. This is a really cool deal here, is this one here. This is a sampler that I've just put a kick drum in. Now this will, if you look at the notes here going across here, that's just that kick drum at different frequencies, and it adds punch. I mean, really punch to every note that I'm hitting. And it'll even bend them. Does that make sense? And it's amazing the impact you can get doing some really wild stuff in just something like that. So the whole understanding of this and the whole reason why I point in this direction is because the versatility of it. It's really doubtful. You might buy a different DAW. You might buy a different DAW, different plugins, different things, different effects, all kinds of different amp sim as you progress and you go along. But your whole rig's real simple. It's a laptop. It's an audio interface, a cabinet, and a head that you don't never change any of those. But you might mess around with your DAW inside of here and change some of that. But that rig will last you the rest of your life more than likely. You get a pedal board for it so that you can plug it in the side of your laptop, and you've got a rig for life that's unimaginable. It can do so many things that's not even funny that it's like, and I'm just scratching the surface of what it can do when you're running it like that, because everything can be run into the DAW, which is basically a music studio. Does that make sense? And you can get all kinds of stuff to work in conjunction with your guitar and MIDI information and other instruments, and it just, it's mind-boggling what all you can do. But the basic concept of it is for one purpose, to simplify your rig so you don't change it. Now, you've got an audio interface. You might buy a better audio interface later. You've got a small cabinet in the head, and you can always mic it later if you go play live into their PA, or if you like them have a huge cabinet in the head, that's cool, or 20 of them, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, and this setup can get really advanced. I mean, once you start messing with this and understanding this, I mean, you can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on all kinds of external hardware that works in conjunction with this. Does that make sense? That's linked into it, into your mixing system and your mixing board. You pull up your mixing board and start. I mean, it can get really complicated, but this is just a very simple setup to show you the advantages of that. That way, as you progress, as you define your style and your technique and things like that, that you've got a world of possibilities there to work with, and it really simplifies your guitar rig so that it doesn't, you're not sitting around a lot thinking about, I want a different amp, or I want a different cabinet, or a different head, or different this, that, the other thing, because you're basically more going to be looking at plugins you're using inside of here. Most of the time, you're going to relate the issue or whatever you're having to you're not being able to sculpt the sound with one of these plugins inside of here to shape the sound the way you want it. And so you're going to start looking at it from that perspective as you're an engineer in a studio sculpting the sound with engineer's tools rather than, you know, almost engineer's tools that made an amplifier so you can go take it on the road, that you got all this technology available at the drop of a hat to work with. And it's amazing. You'd be surprised once you start working with it. At first it might seem kind of strange that this is your amp setup, you know, in your rig, but after you get used to it for a while, that it really is unbelievable the versatility that you have. And you find that this stuff is a lot less prone to problems. You've got less chords. You've got, how many chords you got just with that simple setup? Not that many, bro. You got like 2 chords going out, 1 MIDI line and 1 MIDI line to your pedal board, and that's it. And you know, everything else is in the DAW, which is usually much less susceptible to problems, to signal flow issues and things like that, and having problems trying to figure out where is the problem in line, what's happening. That it really simplifies the setup to where you're not looking around for what their dang problem is, because it's more likely in here and it's really easy to find. So that's basically where I would lead you next, because at this point, that if you've watched the last video and you really started studying music and all the aspects of music and all the things that are happening music, that this is the logical next step to try to get you to see that as your guitar rig. Because it's not just that. I mean, it's not just being able to do that. It's also being able to analyze your sound so that you can sit here and go, well, you've got things like spectrometers. You know, I mean, things like spectrometers to take a look at your sound, to see what's happening with it, to shape it, to work in conjunction with whatever type of, I mean, any type of oscilloscopes, spectrometers, phase meters, I mean, all kind of sound analysis tools you can think of to really analyze what's happening in your rig. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it basically turns your guitar setup into a lab, to where your entire guitar rig has got a lab built into it for analyzing your sound and seeing what's going on. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the more you get used to it, the more you'll find that you will try to simplify that as much as possible. You will find yourself trying to find a good audio interface that's set up to really just deal with being an interface for your guitar and what you're trying to do. A head and a cabinet that's got as flat a frequency response, it's not coloring the sound as much, because you might get in here and you're going, well, you know, for this deal that I really like on this amp sim, I'm going to really lead towards, you know, a clean American head, or a crunch American, or a British drive, or some kind of metal head. And the cabinet, you know, the cabinet that I really want to work with is I want to use this boutique cabinet. Does that make sense? So I don't want the sound being affected by the cabinet and the head that I got back there, because I'm doing it from in here. I'm choosing the head, I'm choosing the cabinet basically I want. I'm choosing how to mic it, where to place the mic in conjunction to that. And then when I get done with that, I'm choosing an impulse response to help shape that sound so it doesn't sound sterile, because it basically adds the acoustical element and spatialization element that any cab has being played in any room, and there's thousands of them to choose from. And it just goes on and on. Then you got basic, you know, convolution reverb and basic delays to broaden and widen the sound, distortions if you're using them, and just, I mean, it's unbelievable. And once you get on from there, you really getting into things of really shaping your sound beyond comprehension, with things like, you know, iZotope's music production suite of being able to shape the sound in ways that's infinitely, I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's a laboratory inside of your guitar rig. So an analysis tool, so you can really find out what's going on, and it simplifies your rig. And it also, and it looks cool, bro, if nothing else. You know, I mean, your guitar rig is basically a laboratory for the most part. You know, it's an audio laboratory, an audio studio that basically is your guitar rig. So I really kind of push you towards that direction and advise that you study about that, learn how to do that, learn how to use that. And it's not that you can't use the other stuff in your amp. I mean, that line 6 that you see that I got behind there, and whatever cabinet and head that I'm using, I can use the stuff on that also in conjunction with this stuff. Does that make sense? Or I can just grab it itself and drag it off somewhere and use it without this stuff if I want to when I'm just practicing and things like that. I just plug into the head and the amplifier and I'm doing my practice and stuff like that. And I'm actually recording and playing. Now I want the sound to be as good as possible and I plug into my rig here. Does that make sense? So it's I've got pulled out this old audio interface to show you. It's like you can't really show you my other one. It's down there in the cabinet. So, but anyway, it's a really cool understanding to come to. That way, you basically, by the time you get done, that you have infinite possibilities with your guitar rig and your setup and the possibilities that you have with the technology available to make your guitar sound like anything you want. I mean, I've got this guitar sitting here, this Jackson, but I can make this guitar sound like any guitar you want. I mean, I can. And within 5 minutes, I can make this sound like a Les Paul. You would never know this guitar is not a Les Paul or a Telecaster. In 2 minutes, I can change to a preset and go, okay, I got this other preset set up right here that's a preset that's going to make my guitar sound exactly like a Telecaster. You are not going to be able to tell a difference in no way, shape, or form because I'm going to have a setup that sets it up like a Telecaster. I'm going to be using an amp and a head that's going to be working together with that and an impulse response, and you know, you're not even going to be able to tell I got a different guitar in my hand. You wouldn't be able to tell unless I told you. So I mean, it takes that. You can end up with a much more versatile guitar that you can shape to sound like any guitar you want once you figure out what kind of style you want, because you'll be more worried about choosing a guitar that's got the right weight, the right feel, that feels good to you. Because, you know, you might pick up a Les Paul and you go, I really like the heaviness of a Les Paul, and it just feels good and heavy and solid in my hand. I don't like that little Jackson guitar. It feels like I'm playing with a Tinker toy or something, you know. And it's like, and you can shape that Les Paul to sound, if you like to, you like to sound like Eddie Van Halen playing his Kramer, and it's like, well, it just doesn't sound like that, bro. And you can shape it like that, sound that with the EQs and all the effects and things you have for shaping sound to sound just like a dang Kramer, and with no problem at all, with a little bit of time and effort. So that's another aspect to look at. So this is the next step that I would lead you in your working forward with your style and your technique and your guitar playing, because this opens up another world of possibilities that you're able to do with your instrument. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace, hope, love, and I'll see you in the next one.